Hey, welcome back, friends. Episode number 103, 103, CJ, episodes. And you've been on 4 of them so far.
Yes, I have.
One. My new co-host.
Well, thank you.
This is
a
Todd.
New promotion.
Yeah, you would think. Todd Baxter, Monroe County Sheriff here in Rochester, New York, with our 103rd episode and our 4th in a series of Behind the Badge. And we're talking about the double initial murders from some 50 years ago and how you folks in law enforcement, the Sheriff's Office, the State Police, the Wayne County Sheriff's was taking a whole new look at this. And we've been talking about a couple of our guests repeatedly on the other episodes as we interviewed the media and we interviewed the other departments and you give that 1,000-foot overview of this investigation. So we brought them in. We thought we'd talk to the people you keep on talking about. Deputy Houlihan, how are you?
Very good, sir.
Yeah,
Thanks for
good.
having me.
And it's great to have you here. And then we got Administrative Assistant Rowe. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you guys. CJ has been bragging about you guys in all the episodes about how much work you're doing to put this together. And we thought we'd bring you in and just maybe you could share your perspective of this investigation, both from a younger deputy, if you will, position. Not even an investigator, but you got an interest and an affinity towards this, and even a civilian support that's here looking at this thing. And I think we keep on saying the word organization, and that's what these guys have been able to do for you, right, CJ?
Absolutely. They've hit it right out of the park. It really is amazing.
Yeah. We've been talking about putting this case together. I mean, 50 years ago, multiple different ways of looking at it, let alone investigative techniques and files. But so with that being said, we want to bring you and Deputy Houlihan and talk to you a bit. But first, who are you? What makes you tick? Is this behind the badge? What's behind that badge as you as a cop?
I'm a cop second.
Yeah.
A family man first. I've been with MCSO for just about 5 years now.
That's awesome.
I grew up in a law enforcement family. My father worked for RPD for just shy of 31 years. So
Had the honor of working with great cop.
Yeah. That's the world I grew up in, and here I am now.
Yeah.
Hopefully following my dad's footsteps and make him proud. And,
That's good. And we're glad we were the Sheriff's Office, former RPD myself, but now it's all about MCSO.
Yeah.
Recruiting the best team we can get here.
Yeah. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, and we were talking out in the hallway about building our bench and Molly being in a civilian position, right? But, being able to get deep in an investigation like this, a 50-some-year-old cold case, profound cold case that we're going to get a little deeper into, but just having you here and being part of this, it's great. So who are you and what makes you tick? What brings you to us?
Well, I can relate to what you said. My entire family's law enforcement. My dad still works here as a captain. And I'm actually just about finished with my criminal justice degree. I just finished up my thesis that actually focused on cold cases. So working on that and having this role and looking at the double initial investigation was a really cool experience.
Yeah, think about that. We're getting work on her, and she's getting a grade. Hopefully, you're getting an A out of this, but
Hopefully.
You can't get much more real world.
I hope she does because she's a 4.0 student.
Yeah.
Not officially yet. A couple more weeks.
Oh, no pressure. No pressure. If you can send us your transcript in June, we'd appreciate it.
Well, it may already be here.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we've been talking in the last few episodes about, first of all, organizing this case, and that's where you guys come in and like to talk a little about those lead files you guys created and the reading of every document, as CJ talks about. But doing many cold cases over my 35-year career, new perspectives, new ideas, new thoughts. CJ was just interviewing people from the media. What would you do, right? And that's what this is all about. There's some stone that hasn't been turned over yet, or some nugget of information that we haven't been able to get our hands around yet. So it's good having people that look at it totally different. And I think that's one of the best things that you brought in so far is 12 volunteer deputies that are involved in this investigation. We talked about in the last episode. It's the right thing to do. And so, CJ, how about a little bit about these characters you brought to the table today as far as what they've been doing and for this investigation?
Yeah. So basically, up until January of 2022, we had 2 boxes. The files were so there are 2 case files. There's Carmen Cologne, Monroe County Sheriff's case files. They were in 2 boxes, 3,300 pages of documents. Wow. And I went to my captain and I said, hey, I want to get these case files organized and I want to open up this investigation. And that's when I was introduced to Mike here. And I sat Mike down and I said, would you be willing to read through 3,300 pages of documents, and then I want you to organize them, and then I want you to do a table of contents, and then I want you to put them in this sort of fashion, and and you're going to have an office that's basically the investigator's locker room that I put 2 tables in with no windows, and for 6 months, 8 months, 8 hours a day, he sat there and just read through everything. And I would walk by the office and look in on him every day and just be amazed, because I don't know if I could do that.
Right.
I really don't.
That's tenacity. So what brought you to the case? How'd you end up? We know it from CJ's, the sergeant's position, but what brought you into the fold of this thing? It's, you're a patrol deputy.
Yeah.
Right. Uniform, and all of a sudden you're doing a cold case of. When this cold case happened, it was fear through Monroe County. It was terror going through Monroe County, and it was national news.
Yeah.
He's a young deputy out in the zone. Now you're putting together a whole new perspective of this thing. What's your affinity towards investigations? What's your affinity towards this particular case? Because you could sit in that office and not dig through all this and become an expert that I understand you are now in this case.
Yeah, so CJ came to me, like you said, in January, and he said, Hey, buddy, I got this this really cool case. You want a part of it?
That was good.
And he said, this is gonna be super exciting and awesome and fun, and it's awesome and fun. I don't know about the exciting part.
Yeah.
It definitely had its moments.
Thousands of pages of someone else's documents.
Yeah. And I told CJ, I was like, just give me a couple weeks to read through it. Foolishly, I thought, like 2-3 weeks I'd be through it, and 3 or 4 months later, I'm still reading through stuff. I don't know how you could look at this case and not become invested in it.
Right.
You're reading about, one of the worst tragedies in Monroe County history.
Right.
So you start getting into those papers, and you're just invested emotionally.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. As you read those names over and over, and I said the characters earlier, but what I mean by that is, each one of these is part of a story that's 50 years deep. I mean, those original investigators, those original cops on the crime scene management, all the subsequent great name-worthy detectives that worked this case in Monroe County throughout all the jurisdictions, and now you're part of that story. You got to become invested for the sake of justice, right? These girls deserve justice, and they haven't got it yet.
Yeah, and and the paperwork doesn't even begin to tell the tale of it. I was able to get in touch with Carmen's family, and her mother's still around, and they're still looking for justice to this day. And I know that's true for the other 2 families as well. Mm-hmm. They're just looking for answers.
Right.
So hopefully we can provide those to them.
It is our goal. We're justice seekers. Right?
Yeah.
Cops, we're justice seekers. And Molly, how do you come involved? What's your obviously you're doing a research project on, if you will, cold case studies in that, but which brings again a new perspective to us. You might be learning something back at the academic world that might trigger a thought in our world. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, when I got the call to work on this, I remember I got a phone call from my dad of all people, and I was like, oh shoot, what'd I do wrong? So I ran up to his office, and you're up there along with some
parents do to kids.
So along with some other people, and he asked me to take part in this, and I was incredibly excited. And once I got my feet wet, just like you said, you spend so much time looking at this, and there's no way you can't become invested and to work to seek justice for these young girls who've had so much stolen from them and now have to wait that 50 years to find the perpetrator. It's been a lot, but I think it's been an amazing experience to take part in this. And just like you said, there's been times when it's frustrating, but in the end, it's been good.
And just to piggyback, and just so you clearly understand, so Mike was responsible for organizing the entire Carmen Cologne case. And then while Mike was working on that, he and I started talking because we were always working ahead. And we said, well, what's the next phase? And the next phase is to get the Rochester police records, because the Rochester police had 3 missing persons cases that they all started with. So Mike made a call to some contacts that he had over at Rochester Police, and they said, absolutely, we open up our doors to you. So we ended up hiring an intern And then you and that intern went over and for a whole week just scanned 3,500 pages of documents. And he brought them back to the sheriff's office, and we set those aside. And then, when Molly was brought on board, Molly was given the task of organizing, indexing, and cataloging all 3,500 pages of the RPD files. And now she is the case agent for the RPD files. Mike is the case agent for the Carmen Cologne files. And then we have Kevin Coons as the case agent for Michelle Mayanza, and Eric Foonstuck is the case agent for Wanda Walkowitz. And we're all working together, and the communication, coordination, cooperation between everybody is just, it's great to see. And honestly, I got 2 all-stars here. Yeah. I really do. And, I'm not saying that to float your boat or anything. I mean that sincerely. Yeah. So they hit it out of the ballpark.
That's great.
Hands down.
Well, from a sheriff standpoint, it's so appreciated, that we get young people involved in the organization and building our bench. We were talking about that earlier, but that brings new thoughts, new vigor, new ideas, new technologies that might be out there, let alone the salty old veterans in the room that, think different and do different things. But, for the families, for the girls, and then for all the cops in the last 50 years that have put their heart and soul into this, just like you, you became the word invested in this, right? I just love using that term because that shows behind the badge with this whole episode, how we become involved, we become related to, we become vested interest partners in solving these crimes. Your heart's in it, not just your job. That's profound.
Just one other thing, and I don't think Mike will say this, but when there came a point in time when he finished his portion of the project, his phase, and it was time for him to go back and do his duties on the road, and he said to me, I do want to stay involved in this. And he had no idea that was already decided by me, that you're in this for the rest of your career. But
well, you just got to make an arrest. I mean,
hopefully,
no big deal.
But and another thing I tasked Mike with was coming up with listing out every single male's name that was ever mentioned in any of the reports. And I told him, I said, Mike, I want you to use your training, your experience, your gut feeling, and I'll let you tell the MCSO tier probability system that you and I came up with.
Yeah. So, like CJ said, our theory is that the suspect has been listed in one of the reports somewhere. At some point he was spoken to. So, we have a list just for MCSO of probably 400 plus suspects. So we had to come up with a way to organize that. And, CJ always said, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. You can't just, jump into it and look at everybody. Right. So we had to figure out a way to prioritize our suspects. So we ended up coming up with a 1 through 5 scale, 1 being our most likely suspects, just based on the information that we have, and 5 being just people who were talked to who have alibis or just were not involved.
Right.
And then we're going to go through that systematically from 1 to hopefully not 5. Hopefully we don't make it that far through our list, but right. And just I think you said earlier, just keep turning over stones until we find the answer.
And I remember, this is just the great working relationship that we had, but when it came time to coming up with the scaling system, I don't know if you remember this, but he came up with 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'm like, no, we have to do 10. And somehow, after several hour discussion, we ended up settling on 5.
Yeah.
5, and I think that's worked out the best.
Yeah. I mean, and that's how this whole project has been. It's, we're creating something. Yeah. Right? This isn't our normal method of cataloging our cases.
Investigative leads, right?
Most of our cases aren't 3,300 pages long.
Yeah.
Right.
And
with no physical evidence except the ones that the state police were able to observe, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, no technology, no cell phone tracking, no cameras, no license plate readers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we're so used to.
And I'll tell you another perspective that I have that's really, it's kind of cool, is there were times over the last year, where I'm stuck in my old ways. And Mike, who, I always encouraged him to speak up, and he would say, no, you probably should do it this way. And, and rather be interactions with other people. And he definitely has provided me with a lot of guidance. And there were a lot of times where I just shut my mouth and listened to him. And it has paid dividends beyond, it's really paid off a lot.
That's called leadership. The ability to surround yourself with people with might have better ideas and other ideas. They don't have to be senior to you, but for yourself to subordinate yourself to his ideas, I think just a great trait of a leader, CJ. And I know everybody at this table is humble, so allow me to do the praising, I guess, because you guys won't. That's a great trait of a leader, that you're willing to listen to someone that 5 years on, a patrol deputy. I used to be a detective, now I'm a sergeant. And no, that doesn't mean anything. You got a good idea, let's run that. And same thing, civilian staff, hopefully in a blue uniform someday, but civilian staff. And then what about your study? Talk about, you're doing a research project, you're doing it's got to be fascinating. You're able to do it while writing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this project, I interviewed local investigators and just kind of asked for their take on investigating cold cases and why they think cases went cold, some of the challenges associated with investigating them. And a lot of what they shared was relevant to what we were working on. And it just kind of brought a unique perspective, being able to not only see what these people were sharing with me in real life and also apply it to they mentioned doing X, Y, and Z. Maybe we should try that.
Yeah.
So that's been a really interesting and cool connection that I was able to make. And even just building connections with those investigators that I interviewed and the investigators that were working on through the sheriff's office and through Wayne County and the state police. Since I am so new in my career, being able to establish those connections and learn from, all these people who have excellent experiences has it's done a lot for me, I think.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something that's really impressed me about you is the speed at which you worked. Every single day I would come into my office and I would take a peek into that room, and there were more and more reports laid out with Post-it notes on them and multicolored. And there were literally 400. And one day I had to hang a drywall or a whiteboard, a 6 foot by 4 foot whiteboard. And, I moved the table and all the reports got messed up. But 6 months of work. She works very fast, very efficiently.
Yeah.
You work very efficiently.
Not quite as fast.
Meticulously.
No, it was very impressive when I came in and looked at, I'd get in at 10 o'clock at night and I'd walk in the office that you got her set up with, and it was way more organized and neat than my office was.
It really was impressive.
It did have a little bit more space.
Yeah, and she got set up with the whole office there, CJ.
Still no window, though.
Did you get a window?
No window.
It's just for the big shots.
But now, moving into the next phase.
Yeah.
So we have 400 plus men listed out. We have the tier probability system, with 1 being hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and 2 and 3. And then I mentioned this a little bit the other day, but the next thing that Mike and I did was we put out an email to the whole department. And we said, hey, we need help. We need help in actually sending people going out to swab possible suspects for DNA. And if they're deceased, then they're family members. And a great thing happened is we didn't know what response we were getting, because when we put this email out, we were saying, you're not going to get any compensation for this. You're still going to have to do your regular job. You're already overworked, and this is all going to be extra. And we had a number of deputies step up and say, yeah, I'll do that. I want to be part of that. And the response, these guys have gone out, guys and girls have gone out, and the reports that we're getting back are phenomenal. I mean, detailed and just so well written, and the interviews that they're doing are superb. It's really great to see building the team. And when you build a team of people who are engaged and want to be a part of it, that's the best team.
So your peers, right,
Yeah,
are helping out. So this isn't just a CJ Hooley story, right? I mean,
No.
we got, I think, 12 people on board to go out and do extra work, which no one likes extra work. We all have an in basket, and in our world, even your in basket gets thrown to hell with chaos, right? We respond to horrific crimes that might take days and weeks away from your objective of going through these case files and leads. But I think that's absolutely phenomenal. When CJ told me that number, that 12 people more than that actually volunteered to help out and go out and do this additional duty. From a person that runs an organization of 1,000 people, you're thinking about that's motivation, that's esprit de corps, but in addition to that, that's building the bench. I've used that term a couple times. These guys, as you have learned so much just going through this whole process, right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to pay dividends for decades to come. And now with your ability to build this team collectively, we got dozens of people that are learning new things and doing extra work that makes us all better, makes the whole community better. It's from a standpoint of leadership, that's pretty cool.
I want to give Mike the appropriate credit. There was a point where we discussed and we wanted to get our case files organized and get our house in order and then reach out to Wayne County and the New York State Police. And there was a point in time where he came to me and he said, I think now we need to go sit down and have coffee with these guys. Yeah. And now that we're getting our cases organized, and the timing could not have been better to do that. And the relationship that we have formed with them it's been wonderful.
We got to interview the lieutenant and the investigator the other day, and it's evident that the synergy is there, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a siloed us versus them, or I got information you can't have. As you mentioned earlier with the RPD, allowing you in there and just, here's the key to the door. Come on and index what you need to index out of our files, or even photocopy or whatever. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, everybody, interagency and intra-agency, right. Everybody is working together perfectly. I mean, it's been beautiful.
These 12 deputies, are they scattered throughout the zones and platoons, or is it a little bit everywhere?
Yep. Yeah, actually, I have their assignments are right up on the board there. They
we'll run them, yep.
Yeah, they are from all three zones, cool. Community services and warrants. I mean, they're spread out all over, perfect. And all three platoons too.
You couldn't ask for. I mean, that's what you were looking for. I'm sure. Again, diversification of ideas and these guys building that. Next level, the next generation of potential investigators and everything else.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to say is, honestly, this case, I equate it to almost the 9/11, like the World Trade Center. I mean, it is gargantuan. If you take all four agencies, put them together, put all the documents together, you're talking over 10,000 pages of documents. It is a massive case.
So, Mike, you had the opportunity to read a lot, months and months of reading.
Yeah.
What was some of the most profound things you found when you were reading through the cases? What stuck out? What was like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a lead, but there had to be information like, I never thought about that, or I didn't know people did that, or...
Yeah, I mean, the most surprising thing as I've gone through this, there's been two things. It's how many creeps there are out there, unfortunately.
Right.
I beginning this, I thought I'd be like, you might have a couple people who'd really be like, that's a good suspect.
Right.
You got like 30.
Wow.
And the second is the cooperation from the families and the community. I don't think we've had a single suspect yet where we haven't had a cooperative family member. Carmen's family has been extremely cooperative.
Wow.
And part of that, I think, is a lot of people's desire, knowing that, their father, their grandfather was, a prime suspect in this horrific crime, to be able to clear the name.
Right.
Right? So it's mutually beneficial for a lot of people. I keep finding stuff that's just, amazing and blows your mind, and it's a very cool case.
As we were talking in the episode with our friends from the media, Gary Craig and Nikki Rudd, we were like, think about putting yourself back in that era, the terror, the utter terror that was going through the community of Rochester, that you couldn't keep your own children safe, right? That our most precious commodity in our kids were being targeted, and that had to be a very vulnerable feeling for parents and very scary for young girls, and the point I keep on making on these episodes is we haven't forgotten them. We're not going to let them die in vain. We're not going to stop. I can't imagine the first phone call you made to Carmen's family. And, they've had many of those phone calls over the decades, right? No one's dropped this case. Everybody's kept on working at some very profound names in this investigation from the law enforcement community. But, at least they have a sense that no one's forgotten. They obviously haven't forgotten.
No, of course
God,
not.
no. God, no. But.
And I just remembered what I was going to say.
Well, welcome back, CJ. It's good to have you here. This is the Behind the Badge, episode number 103. Take 5.
No, there are so many names, and this is an investigation. It is so massive. It is incredibly important that we move slow and methodical.
Right.
This is not a case where we can all of a sudden just open up this massive task force and start. This is something that it's had to go this slow, methodic process to slowly grow and slowly build up steam, and I think that's been a huge benefit.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm looking at Molly's notebook over here. It looks very organized, and again, that methodical part you're talking about, that's what investigators do.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, I've been in law enforcement for 35 years. I'd never make a good investigator. I just don't have that tenacity. I don't have that, I'm always moving, where investigators sometimes got to sit on leads for months and years to make their case, and that's an incredible skill set that gets on a case and just won't let it go. And I want to emphasize as a sheriff, what you guys created with that dozen of deputies that volunteered, the fact that you were willing to step up, Molly coming on board, the synergy with the other departments, that's not easy. You just don't wait. I mean, to get the state police, the Wayne County Sheriff's, the Rochester Police Department, and this young breed of people in the sheriff's office, egos can naturally kick in there, and territory can naturally kick in there. And that just ain't there. That's an effect on the families, like we already said, but that's also personalities. I've done 35 years of this. You throw the wrong personality in there, you can shut a lot of doors. The ability to open yourself up and be humble, as you demonstrated earlier by your subordinate to a young, if you will, detective. This is what it's all about, guys. This is not cliche. This is where justice comes from, in breaking down those egos and silos. So I congratulate you on that, and I congratulate you for recruiting that team by the sheriff's office. If it can be solved, we'll solve it.
Yeah.
If it can be solved, we'll solve it. And if it can't, we've done our job. Our job is to pursue every lead and see where it takes us, and not leave any stone not unturned. So I congratulate you on that, and I appreciate that as sheriff. Go get him. He's out there somewhere.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to wrap up. CJ, we will definitely keep in there the fact that you had a senior moment, if you don't mind.
Oh, no,
yeah,
absolutely.
that's awesome. Absolutely
That's
good.
no problem at all.
Good. No problem. I have a lot of them.
It's not going to surprise anybody, trust me.
But Deputy, first of all, thanks for the work you're doing, and it's great to have you on this case. It's really pretty cool to watch, and please express to your dad what a great cop. I always loved working next to him. Yeah. You knew you had a good police officer. And Miss Rowe, same thing with your father. I love the law enforcement blood here. It's pretty cool. But thanks for bringing your perspective.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
bringing your ideas to this case. It's the right thing to do. Look at it from all different lenses and see what happens. So with that being said, to the families that are out there, we're not forgetting. We will never forget. We'll pursue justice for them wherever that takes us. And we want to make sure that at any time, we're never going to forget your victims even 50 years later. So thanks for what you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you.